Let us explore cross-legged sitting's darkest secret. The original Buddhist statues did not depict the Buddha sitting in the full lotus position. That didn't come till later. Later on, when Buddhism had become institutionalized, anyone can sit in the positions first depicted in the quarter lotus position. Very few people can sit in the full lotus position, no less thrive in it for 60 minutes at a shot. That's a prime example of elitism. So I'm going to jump forward in the text and show you a photograph of a statue depicting the quarter lotus position. Notice that the legs are parallel, just one shin resting upon another. Notice that the feet are turned up. That's to protect the ankles, and I'm going to explain how that works out in a minute. Then I'm going to explore how the vertical traction helps with the spine. So what I'm going to do now is switch gears to the jumbo screen mode so we can show you step by step how to sit. We're going to begin with the assumption that you are differently abled and cannot sit on the floor. So I'm going to show you the proper sustainable way to sit on a folding chair. The kind of folding chair you can get at a big box store or at a garage sale. So, you don't want to slouch, you want to sit upright. Feet, tippies, flat on the floor. Tush at the edge of the seat. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired to generate a vertical traction between our tush and our head. Every time we exhale, we're wired for that traction to release. We don't have to force it. Just being aware of it is enough. If you are too tired to sit up, then go rest. There are wonderful variables in your life you can adjust to increase your personal energy. While I'm over here, I'm going to adjust the camera so we can look at my ankles, which is bizarre, is it not? Okay, so this is a hardwood floor. The technique I'm going to show you will work for a hardwood floor, it'll work for concrete. So, just as our hand can twist because of our radius and our ulna, likewise, we have some play with our feet because the tibia and fibia. If I mispronounce, I apologize. So, upon our ankles, on the outside of our ankle, there's a bone here and a bone here. Some people call this the crown of the ankle. If this comes in contact with the hardwood floor or the concrete, it's going to be painful and unsustainable. So we want to twist our leg so that it's the instep, the top of the foot, that rests on the hard, unyielding surface. To do that, we do not articulate from the knee, because the knee is just a hinge joint. We articulate from the hip, because the hip is a ball joint. So we want this on the floor, protecting the ankle bones. And you'll notice in the statue image, the photograph of the statue, I showed you that that's how the Buddha was sitting. So this turnout comes from the hips. Now, the first time you try this, if your body doesn't cooperate, listen carefully. Do not force it. Forcing it will injure your joints, and I can assure you from first-hand experience that arthritis is not going to help your meditative life. So if the first time you sit you're like this, that's fine. Don't force it. Let time and gravity do their work, and eventually you'll be able to, probably within a week or two. So this is great, and this is sustainable. So an additional secret to sitting is this. The first noble truth is that stressors are all pervasive. There are circumstantial stressors, physical stressors, interpersonal stressors, and mental stressors. In light of that, it should not surprise us that a physical position that's comfortable for 1 minute might not be comfortable after 15 minutes. That is not a spiritual failing. If someone tells you just ignore it, they're not your friend. They're either malicious or ignorant. We do not get extra points for suffering. Once again, that's not the path. We're not on an ascetic path. We're on a sustainably pragmatic path. So here's what you want to do. You want to be able to circulate between positions. So if you've ever noticed my live streams, I divide them up into quarters, 4 sets of meditation, and before each set of meditation, I'll reverse the sequence of my legs. The leg that was on the bottom becomes the leg on top, and vice versa. There's no spiritual reason for this. It's just for sustainability. Now, most of us don't fancy the idea of resting our tuchus on a cold concrete floor. So I'm going to show you how to use a yoga blanket. A Mexican yoga blanket. You can find them online, about $20 or so. They're nice because you can throw them in the wash once a week. You'll want to do that. And they can last for a long time. And they're quite versatile. So I'll show you how to fold that right now. Oh boy. So this is the proverbial Mexican yoga blanket. Fold it once vertically so that it resembles a yoga mat. Fold it the first time horizontally, and the second time horizontally. Et voila, you have a pad that's approximately 16 inches by 24 inches. I like to sit on it, arrange it not horizontally but vertically. Now personally, I have a mark on the floor I line it to. 1, 2, 3, just because it makes it, consistency is my friend when setting up for a live stream. So this makes it easier to sit. All the way down. Okay. Now this is great. Now, I don't know about you, but I have bone spurs in my hips and torn lining, which is not the ideal situation. So what I and many meditators do is we employ a circular cushion known in Japan as a zafu. They're full, if you get a good one, they're full of buckwheat holes. And that's nice because that's a variable. They typically have a zipper. You can open it up, remove some buckwheat holes or add additional buckwheat holes. You want to get the buckwheat hole funnel because you don't want to make a mess. About once every fortnight, once every 3 weeks, me and my tantric partner will add more buckwheat holes to this. And I'll show you how to set this down real quick. Oh, goodness. So I like to set it so that the far edge is parallel or adjacent, flush with the far edge of the folded yoga blanket. So the rounded cushions for the tush and the ankles rest comfortably on the folded yoga blanket. Now, there are many entrepreneurs who would say don't use a blanket, use a special cushion. We'll give it a name and call it a zabuton. But you can't throw them in the wash, and they're expensive, and they get lumpy. And all kinds of filthy McNasties grow in them after a while. So that's it. I recommend if you want to use a folding chair, sit properly like I showed you. If you want to sit on the ground, gently work your way into the quarter lotus position as demonstrated in the most ancient of the statues depicting the Buddha. And that wraps up our opening lesson. Now we're gonna shift gears. It is Ahsoka Tano Thursday morning. Let us meditate like a Jedi. We're going to welcome to the first quarter of this dawn of Dawn's mindful crease counting meditation. So let us begin with a brief explanation of Bengali crease counting. Over the span of 16 inhalations, we could advance our right thumb in the following manner, beginning with our little finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Multiply this by 8, and well, how much do you have? I think it's, let's see, 16, 32, 64, 128. So we can keep track of those 8 sets on our left hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sets of 16 inhalations each. But how do we keep track of our first quarter? Simple. We could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right little finger upon the tip of our left little finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to coalesce in the bladder region of our lower abdomen. Let us demystify enlightenment. Since the Neolithic Revolution, the majority of civilizations have conditioned the majority of their denizens to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. And these elitist folk spin the yarn that meditation is difficult and only for special people. But the Buddha taught the opposite. In the penultimate passage of the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha explained it could be mastered in as little as a week. How could that be? Well, what if enlightenment was nothing more than simply mastering the Buddha's Eightfold Path? But what do we mean by mastery? Human children are born ignorant of how to use the toilet, brush their teeth, tie their shoes, or ride a bike. And yet, most children, by the time they enter first grade, are so good at those things that they practice them spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively after much training and effort. Similarly, this is wild. Simply by playing with the seventh fold's mindfulness and the eighth fold's meditation, the remaining six folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path take care of themselves. In light of that, I would very much love to view mindfulness with you through the lens of neuroscience after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you won't have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. We're going to let's take an in-depth view of mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to effortlessly and automatically access the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord. This bad boy has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way, to help us notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. But what is it we should notice? We've evolved to notice mind's antics of perception. You know, sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, including emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings. Every time we silently and mentally, ooh, that's very loud. So, every time we silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, we gently interrupt the habit of our cerebral cortex to compete with our sympathetic nervous system and open wide the door for these two to cooperate. Now let us explore a concise review of meditation. Every time we silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, we are wired to physically relax and mentally release to the point that what we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less tantalizing, less defining, and even less permanent, if only momentarily. And this illustrates what I inferred a few moments ago, that just by playing with mindfulness and meditation, we cannot help but enhance our familiarization with the literal impermanence that supports letting go. So together as a team, let us practice right now. I'll be right back. Thank you for your patience. Welcome to the second quarter of Mindful Crease Counting Meditation. To keep track of the second quarter, we can rest the great knuckle at the base of our right index finger upon the tip of our left index finger, palms up in our lap. Oopsie, let's try that again. Okay. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to coalesce at the crown of our head. We're going to begin with a brief review of mindfulness. Every time we silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, whoops, look at that. Let's try that again. Okay, a brief review of mindfulness. Every time we silently or mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, we are wired to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice mind's antics. Now let us take an in-depth view of meditation through the lens of neuroscience. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically notice our parasympathetic nervous system. Divided between the lower third and the upper third of our spinal cord, this parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. When we silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, we physically relax and mentally release what we noticed during the previous inhalation to such a degree that what we noticed could fleetingly feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Any good English teacher will remind us that a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. So we have to ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, is rather non-graspable to the hand. And so there you have it. Emptiness only makes sense when approached figuratively. Taken literally, it sparks pseudo-intellectualism or superstition. But from the figurative point of view, it makes absolute sense. And of course, this brings us again to the first fold of the Eightfold Path's deep familiarization with the figurative emptiness that supports our mental release, which flows effortlessly from our practice of mindfulness and meditation. So together as a team, let us practice right now. And remember, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist philosophy, or Buddhist meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. Welcome to the third quarter of mindful crease counting meditation. To keep track of that third quarter, we could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right ring finger, upon the tip of our left ring finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to coalesce at the navel region of our mid-abdomen. So now that we have a passing familiarity with mindfulness and meditation, let us explore duality. Whoops. Okay. Every time we silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, we cannot help but vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice all manner of things. Sight, sound, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. Yes, we could also notice dualities and opposites. We can notice the external and the internal, the physical and the mental, the pleasurable and the painful, the interesting and the boring, the glorious and the grotesque. The fundamental duality we could notice is simply that we desire some things and... Okay, so good morning, Bernard. Here's the deal. The moment you have a question about Buddhist chanting or Buddhist philosophy or Buddhist meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in the chat window. I limit my questions to those three topics. So we could notice that we have experienced the fundamental duality of desire and dread. And on a deeper level, a more subtle level, we can notice we experience a subtle resistance to the real or potential absence of what we desire, as well as a resistance to the real or potential presence of what we dread. Every time we silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, we could release that duality, that pushing and pulling, simply through physical relaxation and mental release that is the gift of our parasympathetic nervous system, accessed during each exhalation. Now, it can be very tempting to feel frightened that if we do this, life will treat us like a doormat. But here's the good news. Simply by playing with mindfulness and meditation every 12 hours or so, we can begin to experience that our choices and our utterances and our deeds flow from the sixth fold of the Buddha's eightfold path, effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity, which should not be confused with the scattered spontaneity we might experience after consuming 3 consecutive energy drinks. But instead, centered spontaneity is the effortless byproduct of correctly practicing mindfulness and meditation. So together, let us meditate right now. Thank you for your kind words, Bernard. We come now to the fourth and final quarter of this early morning's mindful crease counting meditation. How do we keep track of that fourth quarter? By resting our great knuckle at the base of our right middle finger, upon the tip of our left middle finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to coalesce in the heart region of our chest. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, but no, not in the fun, tingly way. What could that suckiness look like? Since the Neolithic Revolution, the majority of societies have conditioned the majority of their people to remain rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. When these rigid and controlling people try to practice spirituality, they wind up getting obsessed with focus and analysis. These two activities can only be performed by discrete neural pathways and regions such as our medial prefrontal cortex or dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Overwork these areas and we will trigger our amygdala, the seat of both anxiety and aggression, which I'm sure you would agree are the opposite of peace and love. Fortunately, there is an easy antidote. Every time we silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, we are wired by our sympathetic nervous system to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice mind's antics, including anxiety and aggression. We call that mindfulness. Every time we silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, we are wired to physically relax and mentally release what we noticed during our previous inhalation, including our amygdala's anxiety and aggression. Not only are we able to let go of those, but we're able to let go of their tendencies to control our choices and our utterances and our deeds. But wait, there's a third benefit. Play with mindfulness and meditation every 12 hours or so, and we will stimulate our anterior cingulate gyrus, the structure that kind of looks like the letter C, that functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy, which in turn is the root of both compassion and love. Could this be? So this is exactly why the late Tukul Tundup insisted that the highest love was the spontaneous and uncontrived, effortless byproduct of simply noticing and releasing. Could this be important? Man, loving kindness constitutes 50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, be it kind intention, kind communication, kind conduct, or commerce that is as cooperative as it is kind. They flow effortlessly from our practice of mindfulness and meditation. So together as a team, let us practice right now. And remember, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist philosophy, or Buddhist meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. Do not, please do not amuse yourself by trying to upset the vanillas. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 3/4 hours, I would very much like to return to the today's dusk meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.